episode together. All right, with a bit of luck, we should be live. At least it says so. And I try to do some video switching and get myself here, like front and center. And this is,
there it
believe it
goes.
or
There it
not,
goes.
Be Smart on Ear. Once again, the incredible, somewhat education-related YouTube show and podcast from pretty much everywhere. But my location is still in the very north of Sweden. That is Luleå. What else about this thing? Yep, we are streaming live on the internet on YouTube, and it seems the stream works actually, which is pretty amazing. And way back in time, we used to do this thing using Hangouts on Ear. That was like streaming pretty much the same way as this thing. That is called. Now we are on StreamYard. I always forget that it's StreamYard, and it's a service that enables pretty much anyone to connect to, say, YouTube or Facebook or pretty much whatever they prefer for free. If you can cope with the StreamYard branding there, I don't think it's a big thing. And if you don't stream more than 20 hours a month or something like that, it's quite a lot. I wouldn't be streaming more than 20 hours a month, that's for sure. But cool, we are on air, and the times, the days are kind of strange for sure. So the episode "Strange Days," I guess, is pretty much fitting. And we have both Finland and UK here. We might, with a bit of luck, but it's a tough call, might get a friend of us or even two from the US here later on. But it seems those guys are kind of busy or sleeping still. That's a good option as well. If you are both sleepy and at work, that's not a good option, I'd guess. But let's see. What about quick introduction thing, one at a time, preferably. It's not much about me. I'm a teacher and I am still at work. The students are not here since they have gone home, but the schools are still, open, business as usual. Here, we'll get into that later, I bet, what the situation is in different countries in Europe. But let's see, Tiina, I'll try to put you front and center. I hope I don't kick anyone out of here. If I do, please try to get back. But if I hit the wrong button, I just might end up kicking you out from the stream. Let's see, solo layout. Tiina, here we go. Who are you?
Okay. So I'm Tiina, and it's nice to be here. We've had these meetings with Hangouts on air, and I'm sorry. I'm
No
sorry.
problem.
I have this double sound coming back to my ears. So
Oops. Yeah, I know that messes things up like crazy.
yeah. I
I
try to
hope.
get
Yeah.
off.
Sometimes there are problems when, at least I've been doing that like pretty way too often. That
You can
if I
see
have,
that I'm not speaking, and there's
weird. You might possibly have
yeah.
another window or another stream running somewhere, or no loudspeaker switch on anywhere either.
Yeah,
If there are
now I had
loudspeakers.
because I opened
You had YouTube open.
I had the
What
YouTube
I did
open
earlier
because I clicked
this
your
morning.
link.
what I did earlier this morning was that I had the YouTube feed of this live thing, running in another window, and the audio was switched on, and that was a complete disaster. Obviously, only for me. It did not go out to the others, but to me it was just awful. What does it sound like now, Tiina? Did you recover that?
Yeah, I've recovered now.
So we go back. Here you go.
Turned off. Yeah, I turned off I had, because you shared the link, I had opened the link just to say it for myself, and I didn't realize that it started going. Well, anyway, so I'm Tiina Sarisalmi, and I'm from Finland, and I'm a project coordinator, and I work in projects financed by the Finnish National Agency of Education. So this is my 8 years now in the teacher training and coordinating curriculum development and different kinds of, mostly internationalization of education, and now quite a lot of development of language teaching and learning, especially in the early childhood education. So always sort of new challenges every other year, and interesting things happening, and of course we have this shared past with Kim and Niilo and Alastair with these hangouts on air or Be Smart on Air things years back, but not for some years now, and this is nice again.
Sometimes I wondered if this Be Smart on Air is a good name or not, especially since if you just see the short of it, the BSOA, I don't know, you might get other associations, but then I always add that, hey, there's no BS, or hardly any at least. Thanks, Tiina. Let's move on to UK. Let's see if I can fix that. Hey, Michael.
Yes, hello. My name's Michael.
Do you think you can speak a little bit closer to the mic, or
yes, of course.
Just a little bit?
Is that better?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so my name's Michael. I'm a primary school teacher of around 25, 26 years experience. Our schools are closed at the moment in Scotland. You introduced me as UK, but I think I would prefer Scotland. Anyway, all UK schools are closed at the moment. So Niilo, I know, along with Tiina, and some of you guys used to have the hangouts. Niilo used to always religiously invite me, but they were always at a time when I had my children in class with me. So this is an opportunity now for me to take part, and I'm very grateful for the invitation.
Tons of fun, really, to have you here, Michael. I must say that. I know you've been awfully busy, and you've been, just like Tiina and many other folks, actually being involved in international adventures so much that it's just incredible.
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes back to about 2007 when the first project I did with a Finnish school, and that's basically carried on for many years. Through a whole variety of projects, which have been fantastic fun. So that's me. Yeah, so hello everybody.
Great. Let's see if we can get Kim here. Yeah, here we go. Hey, how are you doing? How's southern Sweden?
Southern Sweden is fine.
Yeah.
So,
Kim, you are also a teacher, English teacher, right? But it's been a while, I gather, since you worked as an English teacher only, right?
Yes, a couple of years.
Yeah.
So the last about 5 years now, I've only been working with IT.
Yeah.
So as an ICT technician or ICT teacher, or what do you want to call it? So
you are pretty much the Google G Suite guru as well, huh?
Yeah. So that's my day job. I manage the G Suite domain for Lomma kommun, the Lomma municipality.
Yeah, yeah.
And
but you do live in You live in Malmö, right?
Yes.
Still.
And
okay.
Yeah, and Loma is close by, so.
Right. Very good. Hey, not least, but actually last this time, I think, if the US isn't joining us soon. Alastair, hey, good to have you here.
Hello there. Another Scot, but I'm in Sweden, down in the southeast. I know there's actually 2 people are watching this, so welcome, whoever you might be. This is really just a conversation between a few friends, and we just do it live to see what happens.
Right.
I'm from the university side of things. I work at Linnaeus University in Kalmar in the southeast of Sweden, and I work with all things to do with e-learning. I'm not a technician. I'm more interested in how it can be used by teachers. I help teachers. I provide advice, take part in different projects around the world, try and get involved in anything that sounds exciting. I'm interested in all forms of open education, using the net for collaborative learning, all that sort of stuff. And I can't remember, Niilo, how I met you, but we must have bumped into each other at some conference somewhere and then started talking. It just sort of happened, and then I got involved in these hangouts on air, and here I am. It's nice to have these sort of. That's the wonder about getting. The wonder of the net still, even if there are so many dangers out there, there are so many positive things that you meet up with people, you link up, you try things, you get involved in the most amazing things you'd never have been involved in otherwise.
Absolutely. So the funny thing is, Alastair, that I think we first got in touch somehow in whatever virtual fashion, I think. And then we met in Stockholm, like in the flesh. And it was like, hey, when did we meet last time in the physical world? And we noticed we had not.
That's the way it goes.
That is really weird. Yeah. Really, really strange. But that's the way it goes.
So what do we talk about? Is there anything
I was thinking I figured that perhaps we can avoid this word or the very words that everyone is repeating all the time, at least a couple of minutes. We've already done that, I believe. So we are good. But I thought that it would be interesting to hear a little bit from you guys and from different countries about how education is doing these days, since most of Europe actually is closed, at least within education, and Sweden is not. And then in that context, it's also interesting to note that I think here in Sweden, pretty much every student, say like I don't know, age 8, 10 and up, have some kind of a personal device. And if I'm correct, that is not the case in Finland, but it doesn't been a major obstacle, I think, for in the educational system in Finland in any ways. So that's kind of interesting as well. But how is education doing in different parts of the world, I wonder? What do you think? What about going to my native Finland first? I'm kind of really curious, Tiina.
Yeah. Of course, this is something we've been talking about a lot in the last days, and wondered. And actually, I just asked the teachers in my community about what tools they use to communicate with the children at home, and how do they manage the distant learning. And as we got the decision from the government that this distant learning period will go on and the schools will be closed until the 14th of May. So we decided that we have to really start to pay attention on the quality of the education at this point. But it was quite interesting. I've got now quite a lot of answers, and basically there is a really a big hype in teachers wanting to learn to use Teams and Google Classroom and be prepared to meet their students online every day, at least 1 hour, and many teachers who are sort of language teachers or math teachers, they just keep the same kind of schedule they usually keep in the classroom. So they have the lessons as in classroom, but using mostly, I think in Finland people use Teams, but then there are, of course, those who haven't started that and only send the home. It's like homework. It's like read the book and do the exercises, and read this book and do the exercises. But it's I think it's interesting, and I think it's gonna change the way we think about sort of learning and things like that. I'm having today. I had a 4-hour meeting, and tomorrow it goes on for 4 hours. I had connections with. There were people from Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, Germany, Poland, Denmark, and Sweden, and Finland, and we were talking about this situation, and I think more and more. So for example, for me, 4 different seminars abroad were cancelled now because of this corona. But I think the nature and the globe applauds. So I think the effect this will have, that we won't be so. We won't travel too much, and we won't fly so much if we can have. We have had a very good meeting, 4-hour meeting on the web, but it was really better than when we meet face to face.
Very cool, very cool. What do you think, by the way, Tiina? What do you have any rough idea about how many schools are into virtual classes? Actually, like roughly according to the normal schedule. What do you think in Finland?
Oh, I think quite a few, because we have almost, I think all schools they have SharePoint, and then they have Skype and Teams they can use through SharePoint. So that's something that all the municipalities have provided, and then some have in addition Google Classroom, because they like it better, and they have Chromebooks, which are so much cheaper
and much more easy to use.
They can be used on the phone as well, on the mobile as well. All these have a mobile application. So I think almost all students in Finland have mobile phones. And they sort of, in that way, they can join the meetings through mobiles if they don't have necessarily the computer. But also computers from schools are being sort of given out to students who don't have anything at home. So they are sort of, many things have been done which wouldn't have been even sort of possible before. So then we give out our equipment from the school to students who don't have them. But I think mostly it's good, and I think the biggest problems are for those teachers who have small children at home themselves. So if you have 4 children who don't go to school or to the daycare, and you have to take care of them and look after them, and then you try to do your work at the same time. It's really tough.
Really rough. So everything is closed in Finland. I mean, preschools, compulsory education, higher education, everything.
And well, we have preschools and daycare and classes 1 to 3. There are teachers at school, because those parents who work in hospitals or in food stores, in supermarkets, they have to go to work, so they
or
have
police
to
or
take
whatever, huh?
Yeah, but it's recommended that all children who can stay home stay home. So I think there are about 4 out of 20 in the classrooms.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I don't think that Finland has been hit so hard, perhaps due to the way you guys have been preparing there, or whatever. No one knows for sure, I guess, how this thing is being played out. But UK has been hit really, really hard. What do you think, Michael? What's the deal in UK right now? You've closed down pretty much everything, right?
Yes, so I think if we go back 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks ago, I think everything closed on the Friday.
And you are in Scotland, right?
Yeah. So, but this was a case for the whole of the UK.
Yep.
Now, just to pick up on some of the things that Tiina said, so all schools closed. That was the initial announcement. But then, like in Finland, I think there was this announcement that children of what they call key workers, so teachers, people who work in the health service, police and such like, they still had the option to go to school. However, what they've done is they've closed all the schools, but they've identified a number of what they call hub schools. So the children may need to travel a little bit further to attend these schools. But from what I gather, that it's just very small numbers of children who are there. They also asked for volunteer teachers to go and work in these hubs. From my own school, we have nearly 200 children. We have 7 classes. Only the head teacher has gone to one of the hubs. But also, I think it's important to state that the government also made an announcement that adults who had specific health conditions were to basically stay at home for 12 weeks.
Right, 12 weeks.
And that could be teachers or in any profession. So, and that announcement was made 2 weeks ago as well. So, because I'm type 1 diabetic, that was one of the conditions that was listed. So, I'm supposed to stay indoors for the next 10 weeks at least, which is quite dramatic. And it's
it is. Hey, you'll be available for our virtual gatherings, right?
Yes, of course. So that was the position with the schools. And then to talk about the learning, well, just before I go into that, my wife is a childminder and she works from home. And childminders have all been told to close as well. So she looks after very young children, preschool children. So that's stopped as well. So these parents who have these very young children are in a difficult position if they are a key worker. So going on to the school situation, well, for the teachers in my school, there was this sudden announcement that, hey, we're closing on Friday and we'll have to teach the children remotely. And in my own position, I was probably in a better situation than some of the other staff because I had registered for Google Classroom maybe 4 years ago, and I'd gone on 1 or 2 courses and I knew a little bit about it, but I hadn't actually used it. But for older kids who are in high schools, so I have two kids. My oldest son left school last year, but my daughter is in the 3rd year of high school. So they use Google Classroom all the time and have done for a long time. So I think for high schools, it was much easier because they were already using Google Classroom and Chromebooks and so on. But for primary school teachers, you had some who had a knowledge, like myself, some who had never looked at Google Classroom or registered or done anything, and some others that maybe had dipped in and out. But everybody suddenly was asked to do this, to use Google Classroom online. So it's been a very steep learning curve for not just the teachers in my class, but also for the children and for the parents. And Tiina was mentioning in Finland that, well, like here in Scotland, not everybody has a device that they might use or have used for this type of work. So part of the work has involved getting the children into the way of working online, but also part of the work has been getting the parents on board. So I mean, right at the start, 2 weeks ago, I decided to chat to the children in my class in a little video conference, and that got them really on board immediately, because they saw the fun way of learning through sharing ideas directly with each other. But for other teachers, they haven't got to that stage yet. So it's a difficult situation, but we break for Easter tomorrow. So I think probably over the next 2 weeks, the teachers in my school are going to do some meeting online where we can kind of plan for next term. But just again to mention what Tiina, I think, mentioned, our school's off until the middle of May, but not quite the end of your summer term. So schools in Scotland, before they were closed, the First Minister of Scotland said if we close them in March, they probably won't reopen until the autumn.
Okay.
So
that's a long time.
A long stretch. So we have the prospect of teaching online between Easter and the start of July, online the whole time. So,
you really have to learn it. You can't go on just waiting for the next term to start. I think, and besides thinking of the quality of teaching and learning, which is of course, and the variety of things you can do, so it's often very, very basic sort of frontal teaching and as I said, studying textbooks and doing exercises, but the social part is important as well for the students, because this is something that teachers say that when we have these meetings, usually even in the primary school, they have one meeting every day with the whole class on the Teams or Google Meets, so that they can actually see each other and see that everybody's there. It's very important for them to see each other and sort of meet each other. And if somebody's not there, they are very worried. What's happened to Matti? Where is Matti? We want Matti here. So it's this kind of feeling that, and in this way, the video conferencing or the video tools, they are very important to keep the group and the safety and the children together, and they feel that they are sort of taken care of. So 1 hour a day at least, everybody's gathered together. It's a great thing socially.
Yeah,
definitely agree. Yeah.
What about you, Alastair? You have a bit of a special position, I think, partly because you got your roots in Scotland, and I'd bet you know quite a bit in detail about the situation in the UK, and then you know pretty much everything about the Swedish situation as well. What do you think of this thing and the stuff everyone's thinking of, the Swedish strategy compared to what's going on in most other countries?
Maybe that last question I might sort of leave. Well, maybe I'll get onto it. But
The tough one, huh?
Yeah. If you want to keep your job,
You can type it into the internal chat, Alastair.
now, in higher education, I mean, again, that's the most typical of the Swedish situation. Everything is all about sort of, it would be a good idea if you did blah, 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 but we can't force you, sort of thing, which is, I don't know, I think a lot of people would rather have sort of, this is the rule, do it. But we're teaching, all teaching is online at all Swedish universities now, so all the students have all disappeared. There are some rolling around campus still, and they can access study spaces a little bit, but mostly it's empty. I've been at home for the last 2 weeks. For me, it doesn't make the slightest bit of difference because I spend all I just change, instead of sitting in my office and looking at a screen and wearing headsets and having meetings on Zoom and everything all day long, I'm doing it from home. But it's a little bit, yeah.
You're not a globetrotter presently, right?
Nope, no. My globe-trotting days are over. I think that I realized that a year ago, and the last year I've been deliberately cutting my travel to a minimum. I decided that I was going to try not to fly anywhere, and have managed to go to 2 international conferences using Interrail cards. So
great.
Oh, good for you.
I went on a mammoth train trip last summer to a conference in Belgium, followed by a project meeting in The Hague, and then back again. And I was down in southern Poland by train in the autumn. So, I mean, that's been a slow process, which has been rather sad because I love traveling and I've really been very privileged to do so. But I realize it's not, you can't really defend it with the way the world is. And then along comes this. And I mean, it's a staggering transformation. Let me say that, I mean, I would never have believed. I mean, imagine even 2 months ago, and someone would have said, in 2 months' time, the world is going to look like this. You know, every airport on Earth is closed. Basically, there are no more planes. There are the train. You know, nobody's going anywhere. Everyone's locked down. Industry is closing. It's apocalyptic. We are coping to a certain extent, though many people are not, and that's not getting really in the headlines. It's getting really, really tough. People in many countries. Sweden is still is getting on okay, but there are many homeless. There are many people at the bottom of the scale who are in big trouble already. They've got no income, and it could well get worse. So we're very privileged to have a job and be able to work from home. It has been amazing how Swedish higher education and the high schools, they're all at home and it's distance learning. The primary and secondary education is still on site for the time being. But what I've been so impressed by is the group spirit. Even in higher education, because in higher education there's a very much this sort of, this is all mine and you can't have it. So
Don't touch.
I'm not going to tell you how I teach. You have to work it out for yourself. There's a tendency in all education, but it's rather closed. But the national organization I work in, we started up a Facebook group for higher education in Sweden for teachers making the transition into digital teaching. And within 2 weeks, we've got about 2,600 participants in the Facebook group, which maybe doesn't sound that much, but considering, there were previously no Facebook groups that I knew in higher education in Sweden at all. Well, they're not very into social media. So that's amazing. And the amount of sharing and answering questions, giving tips, etc., is impressive. The same time, there's a Facebook group for high school teachers mostly, and it's also just rocketed up, and the traffic on that is incredible. There was a Norwegian school teachers group that got 50,000 members in the first week.
Okay.
I'm a member of all of these, and one thing that's a little sad is that my Facebook feed, which I used to enjoy those pictures of people's breakfasts and trivia and silly stuff, and now it's just full of teaching tips, and it's getting rather boring. I don't want. It's all Corona teaching, I want to see people's breakfasts again. So
it's
that community spirit, I think, is admirable. I mean, that is wonderful. And how can we move on from there now that we've got this momentum and everybody helping each other? And I haven't heard too many cases where courses have crashed because the teacher refuses to go online. They are just being thrown in at the deep end, and build a network, get some colleagues to help you, and work it out. And that spirit is very, very positive. So I mean,
Sure.
that's been the best thing about it, and it's going the groups, the interaction all day long is incredible.
Well, I've seen a few independent developers who's released a few add-ons for Google Meet, and they have, as soon as they have been posted somewhere somewhat public, they've get a lot of users. So this Google Meet grid view, which makes it possible to see more than 4 people at the same time in the Google Meet.
Yeah.
Some people have said they've done with 250 people at once. Not recommended, but it works. That was an add-on that someone created for their own school. It now has over 600,000 users.
wow.
That's crazy. By the way, how is it? Is it possible to stream in public using Google Meet, or is it just like for those schools?
For the domain. So live stream,
for the domains. All right.
Yeah, so live stream is a feature where you can stream up to 100,000 users. You normally requires an enterprise license, but as with many other services, is now free during COVID-19.
Yeah.
But it's only for internal use.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I noticed that.
So Google Meet, however, is completely external. You don't even need a Google account or any account or even a smartphone to participate. You can call in on a normal phone number.
Yeah, there seems to be definitely many positive side effects to this thing, in a manner of speaking. But I must say that I guess I didn't quite somehow grasp how horrible the situation has been in, say, Northern Italy. And I guess it's now in Spain and bad in many parts of the countries. And we are just about getting the brunt of it, I think, in Stockholm, or soon we'll get the peak, perhaps. But man, I listened to this U.S. podcast. I think it was it New York Times or something, their podcast, and they interviewed one of the Italian doctors. Oh, wow, it was just horrible to listen to this. Yeah.
I've got a friend who's a school teacher in Italy, just outside Milan, north of Milan, in the worst affected area, and she's been at home for over a month now, and it's beginning to take its toll. I mean, you saw these all these wonderful videos of Italians on their balconies playing music and singing songs. That seems to have sort of died down now because people are really getting sick. This is getting serious. And there's no end to it. And at first you can have that sort of defiant, joyful celebration. Let's just make the most of it and so on. But after a little while, that begins. Many people have got no money. They can't pay their rent. They've got no salary. They've been made, and it's really biting. And of course, up there's so many people who have died and are dying.
Absolutely.
And if you go out the door, it's like sort of war situation. She said, you go to the shops and you will be stopped by the police, and you will be asked, where are you going? What are you doing? Have you got a paper to prove this, etc.? Otherwise, you're taken very quickly back home again. You can get fined.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
as we go forward,
really
and as we go forward, how do you think that's going to change in the next 2 months? Because you talked about who could have predicted 2 months ago where we would be now. You see, I'm speaking to all my school colleagues online today as well, and our head teacher sent an email saying now there are so many things that we need to report on to our local council after Easter. We need to do all these kind of assessments of the children, send all the results to the council, as we do every year. But there has been a discussion among the teachers, not including the head teacher, I mean among ourselves, saying things like, how do we assess them accurately when they're working from home, often with their parents, when we don't have access to real opportunities to sit with them and work with them one-to-one.
Right.
So I foresee it's going to be very difficult next term after Easter just to keep things going. But really what I was asking before I started about the assessment was, I mean, where do you guys think we're going to be in another 4 weeks or 8 weeks?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
right. I mean, this thing is not going away in a couple of weeks or a couple of months.
No.
Obviously. Things will get more quiet, most probably. I hope, it seems. And then perhaps the thing gathers momentum again. And that would be something like, I don't know, perhaps, I guess no one knows. Hopefully things will be roughly, in some sectors of society, back to normal sometime during the fall or whatnot. But I mean, wow, it's hard to understand the scope of this. I still have a hard time understanding the scope of this. I'm talking about Italy, by the way. My thoughts are with Marilena, our friend in southern Italy. I tried to send her a link, but I think I couldn't make it. Darn, I must check with her again. But I mean, it's really hard to kind of fathom what's going to happen when this most like the first phase is over.
Yeah, just to give you an insight into the kind of things that are being reported in the press here today, and these will be quite different from the position in Finland and Sweden at the moment, because we are ahead of you guys in terms of numbers of deaths and even just restrictions. So there have been several reports today saying that the numbers are becoming so big of people being admitted to hospital that doctors are now being told they have to basically choose who they are going to try and save. So the older you are, the less chance you will have of being hooked up to a ventilator or being given individual attention. And I read about this maybe 2 weeks ago in Italy, and I could hardly believe it. But that is now the reality here in the UK. So it's pretty horrific.
Yeah, it is.
But also, if you think the side effects, like what horrifies me is, for example, Hungary and this Orban guy there who's basically taken sort of being now the sole. I don't know. Politically, he's been a troublemaker all the time. But this kind of critical situations, they bring out also the worst in people.
Yeah.
And for example, the power he's sort of gotten for himself, there is no back in Finland.
Mm-hmm.
All the decisions, they have a time limit.
Mm-hmm.
It stays until this date or this date or this date, that everything is. And if we expand it, then another decision has to be made, and it will be made in not only in the government, but also it has to be accepted in the parliament.
Yeah.
And but there is this thing
Madness.
that we have these tyrants now, and
Sure.
and they're sort of they have this power, and there is no end to it. They can keep it forever. And I'm really wondering the other part. Okay, I think we talked about the years ago. We talked about USA and certain president there, but they say that, for example, in Washington, they don't show on TV Trump at all, because he causes so much confusion and causes so much trouble in people and anxiety that so they don't show him on TV anymore. So
and he could actually. I've read that. I mean, he could quite easily cancel the presidential elections, saying that this is a national emergency. Therefore, I am taking charge, and this is an emergency government we're forming, and because that's what in other countries, in Hungary and Poland and many other countries, democracy self-destructs, and suddenly we find that people can rewrite the laws, and there are many. It's fantastic in a world where we've worked so much with issues of equality and justice and human rights and equal access and opportunities, that we are falling back into a love of big tough guys who have unlimited command, and we're voting for them. So I mean, the countries that have voted for these guys, and we're only one election away from it in Sweden. If the worst, it's not impossible that sort of government could happen here the next election. The trouble is now. I'm terrified of the future nowadays. We used to think the future was about having jetpacks and going on the moon and all sorts of wonderful ideas, and that it would just be progress in a linear, in a line forward ever into a better world. And now I don't want to be in it. I don't see too many bright signs, because once we've dealt with this. There was a lovely quote from Greta Thunberg, who sort of faded into the background. She's probably quite relieved of that for a little break of it all. But I mean, she said, everyone's talking about getting back to business as normal. She said, business as normal is a crisis.
Right.
Business as usual, getting back to normal means we're back to the massive crisis we had before this crisis. So that let's not kid ourselves. This is a nice side twist on this is, I don't know if you want to look at this in a religious sense or just in a case of like nature, but this is nature giving us a timeout in a way.
Nature strikes back. It's sort of,
you can't deal with climate change, so here comes something to give you where you're going to have to stop what you're doing and think. And decide how you're going to move out of this. This is a little crisis compared to what's coming. But if you don't learn a lesson from this one, and I'm not confident we can learn from it, because there's lots of clever people in the world, but unfortunately they're not running the countries.
Spot on, Alastair.
That's a big problem. The clever folks are not calling the shots. They are not running the countries. It's easy to get a little bit gloomy for sure.
We need boring leaders. We need leaders we need more boring leaders who know how to run things properly, how to listen to people. I don't want any more charismatic, maverick go-to guys. I want nice grey bureaucrats who listen to advice, who do things methodically and calmly.
We have in Finland the five. The prime minister and her the leaders of the five parties which make the government, and they are incredible. They are not grey and they are not bureaucrats, but they defend democracy to the last hair in their heads. It's been like the president was sort of taking this position that I am an experienced man and I want to take care of Finland, and would you give the power to me? And these women, that they just said that we this is, everything's under control, and this is the way we work, and this is democracy working at its best. And I've been so proud of those women.
I must say, I've been pretty impressed as well.
Yeah,
very impressed. Pretty amazing, really. Absolutely, you're right about that, Tiina.
Yeah,
for sure.
And everybody in Finland thinks so. It's not just me or women, but sort of 90% of Finland say that they feel safe when the five are leading, and especially the prime minister.
A rare exception in the world, but admirable.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear. I've been saying for a long time we should learn from Finland for the last 15 years, so I'm going to say it even louder now. I agree totally.
Yep. Whoa, I remember a couple of years ago already. I think I was talking to some colleagues in the U.S. Some of the folks that have been into these meetings of ours as well, and I believe, if my memory doesn't fail me completely, the person in question, I don't remember the name exactly, but said that about this gloomy side of things, and where does this all end up, and doesn't look like anything is going to end up in a good way. He said that the young people, that's a really positive thing in all of this, and there are so many young people who seem to get it, and hopefully that's what happens, that the young people get it, since we old timers don't seem to be able to do anything about it. I don't know. Woohoo! Yeah, it's been awfully cool again talking to all of you guys, chatting with you, and I think I do need this.
Yeah. Again.
Really great. Yeah, and I hope to be able to be online with you folks and others, like during the coming weeks and months, for sure. That would be really great, and I feel that partly it like charges my batteries like crazy and gives me a little bit of a fresh view on things as well. I guess perhaps that's the same thing for most folks when getting together in these strange days, I think.
Exactly. Good.
Yeah.
There are positive, as I said, there are some positive things going on, and there are opportunities in the future. But it's easy to get. There's also a lot of scary stuff.
Scary stuff.
Let's keep in touch and move forward, try to get through this.
Absolutely.
Together.
Yep. And I hope my internet connection stays reasonably good, and I need to get that wire in here because it's been hit and miss all the time. I've been checking the signal level all the time. It's been perfect, but that's the way it's been earlier as well. It's been perfect and then just bang, nothing. But well, hey, all the way 1 hour we've been good.
Yep.
So I'd say thanks to you guys, all of you, a lot.
Thanks.
And see you again soon.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Right now, good. Waving goodbye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Stay healthy. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.